If this is not the very first thing that you do when you are preparing for a speech, you are missing out on so much opportunity to capitalize on your speech. What's up, guys? This is Philip Sessions, your public speaking coach. And this series is going to be a 4-part series where we go through my speaking bars methodology to help you become the speaker you need to be and that you should be, and be prepared to speak on that stage properly. This methodology will help you prepare to be on that stage and have a speech ready for you. And this is the exact methodology that I go through every time, which is called the speaking bars method. And so this 4-part series, we will break down each individual part for you so you can understand them better and be able to apply them to your next speech. So the first one is begin with the end in mind. Now, why do I say that? Well, a lot of people, they just think about that speech. They want to go speak on a certain topic, and that's all they're thinking about. But just like in a business, because speaking itself is a business, and when you start to think in a business mindset, this will help you out. So rather than thinking about, I'm just going to speak something, I'm going to talk about a certain subject, you need to start thinking in a manner of, this is a business. So if I want my speech to go well, I want my business to do well, I can't just think about what I'm doing right in the moment. There are times that you need to do that. You have tasks that need to be done in a business as well as in creating a speech. But you need to think about the end in mind as you do this, because when you can think about your destination, where you're trying to go, you can backtrack from there. So if I'm going to go from Texas to California, most likely I'm going to want to get on I-10 to get there. There are definitely other routes to get there, but probably one of the best ways is going to be I-10. But I know I'm going to California, so I know that, hey, at some point I'm going to get on I-10. Now, the way I get there may be completely different. It depends on which city you're starting in. If you're in Houston or San Antonio, you got I-10 right there. So since you get down to I-10 and boom, just take that all the way out to California. But if you're up in Lubbock or you're up in Dallas, you may take I-20, or you may take some other highway to get you over to I-10 that will eventually get you to California. And let's say more specifically Los Angeles, because within California, that's a pretty big state from north to south and everything. So we need to be as specific as possible. And it's the exact same thing when it comes to our speech. If we just say, oh, we want to get up there and speak, we want to motivate some people, we want to just talk about some cool stuff, want to talk about business, want to talk about life, like, what does that mean? So you really need to not only think about what your subject is, but really dig into what you want the audience to get out of that subject. And we'll get into the audience portion in the second part of this series, because that's also important. But we first need to start with, what do we want the audience to take away from this? Where are we trying to go with this speech? Because not every stage that you get on is going to allow you to be able to sell from the stage. So maybe you have a speech that you're actually pitching at the end because you didn't get paid to be on that stage, and the event coordinator or the event host is allowing you to sell from stage. So now you need to craft a speech that's going to get people ready to buy, ready to purchase your product or service from stage. And so you have to prime them up for that. But if you're not planning to sell from stage, you're probably going to talk in a different manner. You're going to get them intrigued and interested to learn more about you, but they have to go follow you, or they have to email you, or however they're going to contact you. They have to then do that because you weren't able to sell from stage. So this is why we really focus on that end in mind, because if we don't focus on that, we can then not reverse engineer the rest of the speech. And this is what it's all about, knowing where we're going with this at the end, what we want the audience to take away, what we want to leave them with, how we want them to feel at the end of it. Because if you don't know this, your audience will remember more about how you made them feel than what you told them. Most people will not retain probably even 10% of the information that you share with them 2 weeks after your presentation. but they'll know how much you made them feel. So if you made them feel awesome, if you made them feel like they were having a good time because you were making them laugh, you were inspiring them, they're going to remember that. Whether they actually took some action from your inspiration, whether they used your funny skit, if you will, to or the joke that you mentioned in your speech to go share with a friend later, they're still going to remember how you made them feel. So when you're doing the speech, you need to keep that in mind as well. So how do I want to make the audience feel at the end? Again, what do they need to learn? And so really focused on this end in mind, then you can break down, okay, so I want them to learn this subject. So if I was wanting to learn public speaking, I was thinking about, okay, what are the things that they need to learn? So I want them to learn public speaking so they can be prepared to speak on stage. So, okay, what does my audience need to learn from that? So, we're going to learn about speaking on stage. And so, what does that look like? Well, some of the things that I could talk about within this overarching idea, because that's what we're doing, our end in mind. I want people to be inspired to take action. I want them to know exactly what they're going to do so they have actionable steps. So these are some of the things that I'm making sure that they feel. I want to make them feel empowered so they're ready to go. They're excited. So I'm going to give them energy, lots of good, positive energy. So that way, that's how they feel afterwards. And then when they realize, oh man, I can't do this myself, they can come back to me. And so we have this overarching idea of public speaking, getting on stage and presenting your message. But then what does the audience need to know in order to be able to do that? Well, one, they probably need to know how to do a speech. So I can talk about that some. Like, so what are some things that you need to prepare for a speech? You have an opening, a body, and a conclusion. And then I could go into detail about that opening, that body, and conclusion. And then, okay, you need to figure out what kind of stories you can share. So, what stories could be relatable for you with that audience? We'll find some personal stories or find stories that are ones that you can kind of take from somebody else or some experience that you've had and be able to apply to that audience there. And so, thinking about those stories too to really fill in that presentation. And the third thing is finding out what stages are right for you because not every stage is right. And I've seen too many people, and I was there when I first started thinking that I'll just get on any stage I can. It's gonna be great. And not every stage is right for you. And it's not just because of maybe it's a bad event host or event coordinator or they don't have a great rep. That's another thing, a reputation, not just rep, but a great reputation. And that's one thing that you definitely need to consider because your personal brand, yourself is the brand. And when you associate with other bad brands, it gives you a negative reputation or a reputation you don't want. So you got to think about that. But then also the other way, if you are a fitness coach and you decide you're just going to go talk to like at a real estate convention where it's nothing but investing and new builds and stuff like that, that may not make sense. Now, yes, you're a fitness coach, similar to me. I'm a speaking coach. I can help anybody. But is that who you really want to help? Is that who you really want to target? Maybe you're trying to talk to business executives. Well, unless it's a bunch of executives at this real estate convention, it's not going to make sense for you. So you need to think about that as well. Who is that audience on your stage? So those are three things that I could share within a speech. And so that's what I mean when it comes to finding stories to talk about, finding some ideas and some stories that relate back to your overarching thought. And that's how you really reverse engineer this speech because you began with that end in mind. So just remember that when you are getting ready to prepare for a speech, the first part of the speaking bars method is beginning with that end in mind. So knowing what you want the audience to take away from you, their feelings, the message that you're going to share with them, knowing what message you want to share with them, and knowing what outcome that you want from that overall for you and what outcome you can have. Can you sell from stage? Can you not sell from stage? But knowing those three things with the end in mind there, that's what you're going to be thinking about and asking those questions to yourself or possibly to the event host for you to understand what that end goal is. And that is the very first part of the speaking bars method. Tune in next week if you're watching this as these come out for the next part two, audience awareness and understanding, or look at the playlist because you'll see it there and it's going to be the next video in this playlist.